you need? Okay, what I want you to do, if you need the calculator, you can. But right here, this part, perfect squares, in order to simplify, you have to know your perfect squares. So I do need you, and I will start testing. We will have like some quick minute checks on your perfect squares. So I need you to memorize these. Okay. This is the sheet I gave you when you walked in. Does anyone have the sheet? Okay, so the perfect square part is basically a perfect square is a number whose factors are itself. So if I do 1 times 1, 1 is a perfect square. 4 is a perfect square because I can get its factors are 2 and 2. Some of you are already familiar with these numbers: 9, 16, 25, 36. So what's in this column here, these numbers in this column are what you have to memorize. 49, 64, 81, 100. If you're not too sure, use your calculator. There's 2 ways you can do that. Let me clear that out. You can just do 11 times 11, or you do 11 squared. Okay. What I'm expecting you is to know if it's a perfect square. Now you can use your calculator to check. Like I can do second and x squared to get the radical and put 121. If it comes out to a whole number, then it is a perfect square. If it's a decimal, then it's not a perfect square. Okay. So we should have 121 here. What's 12 squared, or 12 times 12? Yeah, 144. 13 squared. 14 squared. 196. And 15 squared. So what I need you to focus on for this unit is making sure you know these numbers here in this column. Know them by heart. All right. Okay. So make sure you know those. I do have some flashcards to help you. I will post those on Teams so you can kind of start drilling yourself, because you need to know them by heart. It makes things go a whole lot faster, and especially with the rest of the unit. Okay, so we're going to simplify radicals today. I need you to add this to your notes here. The first thing is this symbol is your radical symbol. It's not a division house, okay? It looks like a little tail end right here. Okay, so understand that's your radical symbol. Radical symbol. Okay. Okay, now, when we have a number or a term underneath the symbol, like let's say we had 45. Okay, put that underneath the radical symbol. The number underneath, or it could be 45y, okay, but we're not doing that here. We're just going to keep it numbers. That is called, this right here, it's called the radicand. We're going to radicand, not radicand not, okay? So radicand here. Okay. Now, sometimes in Algebra 2, you'll have what we call an index. So if you had, like, for example, a number here, the square root symbol, the radical symbol, is always an index of 2. But you can have an index of 3. You can have an index of 4. Okay. If I don't put a number outside, it automatically, you have to know it's always a 2. That, anytime you have a number right here, that is called the index. Okay. So if you have a number with the radical symbol, that is your index. Okay, so in order to simplify radicals, because we're going to put in simplified radical form. For it to be in a simplified radical form, there's 2 things that must be met. First, the radicand must have no perfect square factors, cube factors, or fourth root factors, etc. Okay? And there must be no radicals in the denominator. An example of that, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have 2 and then square root of 3. That's not acceptable. Okay, you can't have a radical in the denominator. This would be wrong. Okay, not in correct form. Sorry. All right, so I'm gonna kind of give you some clues and some steps to help you make sure you're simplifying correctly. So they gave you an example up here. They say we're gonna write the square root of 48 right here, or in simplest form. What you do is you look for the largest perfect square factors. Factors are numbers that you're multiplying together. So yes, I know 2 times 24 gives me 48, but 2 is not in my box over here. I'm looking for numbers that are in this box over here. 3 times 16 gives me 48, 4 times 12 gives me 48, and 6 times 8 gives me 48. Now 4 is a perfect square, but we want to pick the largest one. Okay, so what they're doing is they're going to rewrite the square root of 48 as those 2 factors that multiply together to make 48. And what I tend to do is I tend to square the number that is the perfect square, because that number is going to get simplified. So because the square root of 16 is the number 4, and the square root comes out of the radical and will become in the front of the symbol. Perfect squares do not stay underneath, they come out, because you can simplify it to a whole number. So if you see a perfect square, you need to change it to its whole number representation. That's why the final answer here is 4 root 3. The perfect square came out to the front when you took the square root of it, and what remained stays underneath. So what you do is you take this square root of 75, right? I'm looking at this row here. What numbers in this column go into 75?
25.
Yep, 25. Okay. If you're not too sure, you just basically take your 75 and divide by those perfect squares. Like, I know 1 would work because everything goes in 1. The next perfect square I have is 4, but that doesn't work because that's a decimal answer. You see what I'm doing? I'm only using the perfect square numbers in the column. So 75 divided by 25 gives me 3. That's a perfect square factor that works. So 25 times 3 gives me 75. So this is how I write it. I show those factors. So what I'm going to do, sorry, I got to get my pen right, is I'm going to put an equal sign, and I'm going to put a square root, and I'll put the factors underneath that square root that gave me the 75. 25 times 3. Okay, I'm now going to square or put a box around the perfect square number. That's the 25. What is the square root of 25?
5.
So this 25 is now gone, and the 5 would come out. I'm just showing that I'm taking that number out. And it will be now in front of the radical. What's not a perfect square, what remains?
3.
3. So that 3 is your radicand underneath the radical symbol. And that is the final answer. 5 root 3. Or 5 times the square root of 3. So, looking at 27, square root of 27. 9 and what?
9.
So you write underneath the radical symbol 9 times 3. This is the work I have to see to receive partial credit. Because it's possible that you pick a factor that works, but maybe you didn't simplify it all the way. So you can still get credit for the problem. Now, which number is the perfect square? So put the square or the box around that number. What is the square root of 9?
3.
Yeah, 3 times 3 gives us 9. So that 9 is now gone. The 3 comes out. My final answer will be 3 square root of 3. What is not the perfect square stays underneath the radical symbol. Are we okay on that one? All right, let's think about square root of 18. What are the factors that give me 18?
9 times 2.
Yep, 9 is the perfect square factor. 9 times 2, so we've showed that. Then we're going to square my 9. That's the perfect square. What is the square root of 9?
3.
Yep, so that means a 3 is coming out. So my answer would be 3 square root of 2. Or 3 times the square root of 2. Or 3 root 2. If you kind of get the hang of it, you can move ahead. We're going to look at different types. These are just simplifying the radical. All of these radicals do not have a coefficient, or the coefficient is 1. So we don't usually write that. All right, so now I'm thinking about factors for 24 that are perfect squares.
6.
Yeah, 6 times 4. Okay, which factor is the perfect square? Yep, so that's who I box. That's who's gone. What number comes out and replace the 4? 2. So the 2 comes in front. Remember, the 2's coming out. So this would be 2 root 6. 6 stays inside. 6 is your radicand. It's underneath the symbol. All right, we need factors that are 300 that are a perfect square. 100 and what?
3.
Yep. 100 times 3 gives me 300. 100 is the perfect square. So I'm boxing that. That is gone. The square root of 100 is what number?
10.
10. So that is what comes out, a 10. So we write 10 root 3 as the final answer. What about to get 40? 4 and what? Yep, 4 and 10. So 4 times 10 gives me 40. 4 is the perfect square. The square root of 4 is 2. So the answer is 2 root 10. So you got to know your multiplication facts, okay? You got to know your timetables to do this efficiently. I mean, you can do it without, but you got to know. All right, what about 54? 9 and what?
9 and 6.
Yeah, 6.
Sorry. So 9 times 6 gives me 54. 9's the perfect square. The square root of 9 is 3. So this would be 3 root 6. Okay, what about 180?
36 times 5.
So our factors for 180 are 36 times 5. 36 is the perfect square.
6.
That is 6. So that means 6 root 5. Now we want 242.
121 times 2.
121 times 2 will give you 242. Guys, if you're not too sure what numbers to use, you should only pick these numbers here. And pick something that is divisible by the radicand. Okay? So 121 works. 121 times 2. 121 is the perfect square. What is the square root of 121?
So
11.
So that comes out to become 11. So this would be 11 root 2. Do we have that? All right, glue this in. We're going to do a I try, you try, or we try, you try. So I'll give you the next page because now we're going to look at radicals with coefficients. All right, I know it says I try, you try. We're going to change this to we try. We're going to do this the left side together, okay? And then you're going to do the right side, okay? So if it's a perfect square, you just write the whole number answer. No more radical symbol. So if you're not too sure, guys, if it's a perfect square, you can just go to your calculator, hit second x squared to get the radical symbol, type in 16. If you get a whole number answer, it is a perfect square. So the answer to our first one here, the square root of 16, is just 4. Now, if I thought or wanted to check, if I hit second x squared and get the radical sign and put in 40 and hit enter, now I get a decimal answer. I know that that's not a perfect square. That's telling me it's not. So now I have to simplify this. So this is where I need to know the factors that go into 40. 4 times 10, what goes underneath the radical. 4 is the number that is the perfect square. What is the square root of 4? So the 4 is gone, and now the 2 comes out. So the final answer would be 2 square root 10. What's not stays in. What I don't square or box stays underneath the radical. All right, now this is what I'm saying, this one's a little different. Now you have, you see right here, you have this 2 in front of this radical symbol. It is the coefficient. It has to stay there, okay? But I'm still going to show the factors. So this would be 2, then my radical. What are my factors that give me 32? 16 times 2 is what I'm going to show underneath the radical. 16 times 2. Which number is the perfect square?
16.
I'm going to box that number. I'm going to cancel or cross it out. And what's the square root of 16?
4.
That means the 4 is going to come outside in front with the 2. So when I write it, I'm going to say 4 times the 2 that was in front of the radical and keep the 2 underneath. What's outside gets multiplied together. Yes, so this gets simplified to 8 as your coefficient and then 2 as your radicand. This is the final answer, 8 root 2. Same thing, we have a coefficient here. The -7 is the coefficient. I'm going to keep that -7, but I'm going to simplify the radicand 160. What factors give me 160? What can I multiply together? 16 times 10. Which factor is the perfect square?
16.
So I'm boxing that. I'm canceling that. What is the square root of 16? That means the 4 is coming out in front with the 7. So I'm going to write 4 times that -7 and then square root 10.
So it would be -28.
Yes, it becomes a -28 square root of 10. Yes, that is the final answer. All right, so same thing. We have a coefficient, the -10. That stays in front, but we need to factor the radicand. 392. Use your calculator to divide to figure out what number goes into 392. Huh? 106? 196. Okay. So 196 times what, Janai? Times 2 gave me 392. Okay. 196 is the perfect square number. What is the square root of 196? 14. So that means this comes out to be a 14. So we have 14 times the -10 square root of 2. So my coefficient now is, because we've got to multiply 14 times the -10, that's a -140 root 2 is the final answer. Okay, so I want you to try the right column. You will try these. Of the 5 that you have to do, guys, 2 of them will come out to be a whole number answer. That is your clue. Okay, check with each other. I'm going to give you some time on the screen, and then I'm going to come by and check for right or wrong responses, okay? You can work together, use your notes. If you want to look at the perfect squares that we had here, that would be a good resource to use to help you simplify. All right, let me get the time on the board, and then I will come around once it goes off. Okay, guys, let's talk about, most y'all had everything right, but this last one, I think y'all got it down to, what did y'all have? 6 root 18?
Yeah, there's -6.
Yeah, -6. Okay, you got to remember that this can be broken down some more with 9 and 2. So basically, when I write that, this comes out to be 3. So it's a -6 times 3, then root 2, which is actually -18 root 2. Oh, it wasn't negative. I'm sorry.
Where did the 6
Because y'all, that's what y'all had it simplified to.
No, it was 9 and
I know y'all had 9 and 8. They had 6 and 18. Like, Fanny, what did y'all have? Because y'all had it down to root 4.
Don't worry about it. It's very important to equation.
What were your 2 factors you used at first?
That's what we still said.
What were your factors? Nadia, what were your factors when you did number 5B?
It was, the first one?
Yeah,
It was 36 and 18.
36 times 18. Which this was the perfect square, which is how I got 6 on the outside. Did someone use 2 different factors? A different set of factors? Because you didn't have to use 36 and 18. You could have used another set of factors.
81 and 8.
81 and 8, okay? That works. 81 is the perfect square. That gives you 9 and 8. Now 8 can be broken down to 4 and 2. What's the square root of 4? What's the square root of 4? So that 2 gets multiplied to 9, we still get 18, root 2. You still get the same answer, guys. You just have to break it all the way down. Okay. All right. Make sure this is in your spiral. Okay.
Magnet